I thought, okay, I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but I would tweak the electoral system. Maine and Nebraska already is doing it like I would want to do it. I'll make this. That's the next one, right? Maine and Nebraska. Everybody's got what we're doing, right?
You see it, I just like kind of swat and I like kind of curved it out and curved it back into the lake and hit like the chest. No, I just like it like it looked like the lake. Did it go over? It might just like
He said chalk and a chalkboard. I have to wait for it to get ready. I could just start. Same thing with this little white deal and little markers. I could just do stuff. All right. Let's say here's a state. I'm just going. Looks like Kansas. Let's say there is a congressional district here, a congressional district here, a congressional district here. The number of electoral votes equals the number of senators plus reps. Y'all understand that? What I would do, how do you get electoral votes now? If you win the state, 51%, you get all of that state's electoral votes. So you might get 49% of the vote and not get nothing out of it. I would change that. I would change it to where whoever wins this state, let's say there's 5 electoral votes here. Whoever wins it would get 2, which represent the senators, the number of senators. So that's the overall state. Then each district would count as 1 electoral vote. So if you win the popular vote in this district, you get 1 electoral vote. If you win the popular vote here, you get 1. So it would make the candidates even take their message or do what they could to get even more of the Americans' vote. So your vote would count even more than what it does now. Does that kind of make sense? That's what Maine does. If you win the congressional district, when I say that, does that make sense to everybody? This is 1 congressional district. If you win the popular vote here, you would get 1 electoral vote. If you win the state, you get 2. So you'd have to work harder for it. And if you did good, like Trump in either one, Trump or Biden. Trump or Biden is going to win Texas. But Trump or Biden is going to win areas of Texas, whether they win the state or not. Does that make sense? So you get credit for that. That's why, and so Maine and Nebraska already do that. I'd rather see every state do that. Is that confusing anybody? Everybody clear? All right, let me get this one. The president appointed Justice Barrett. She's now Justice Barrett. What had to happen before she became a Supreme Court justice? The Senate had to look at him. The Constitution calls it the advice. What is it? The advice and consent of the Senate. The president picks people to work within the White House, the press secretary, the chief of staff. The Senate doesn't have to check on them because they work directly just for the president. So when the president picks somebody that Secretary of State, yes, the Senate has to look at them. So if you work directly for the president, of the press, then something like press secretary, chief of staff, most of the White House stuff, they don't go through the Senate. If it's something that's over something else, where you are over your own thing, like Secretary of State, Supreme Court Justice, they have to be looked at by the Senate. Secretary of State, any of those 15 secretaries, Supreme Court Justice, FBI Director, something where you're over other people and you're kind of out on your own working for the government, then they have to look at the Senate. The Senate has to look at them, if that makes any sense. The Secretary of State does answer to the president, but they got their own gig going. These people work for the president. So we're on executive privilege, right? On the back side. Good. Everybody's good? Everybody got this? You didn't say that. Why'd you say?
I tried to and they didn't look nervous.
We got to yell, knock me down. Here. And you can steal whatever we got. Did you get any computers, man?
She needs one too.
Oh, you want to? Oh, throw crap at me.
Okay.
Yeah. If I had your phone, y'all would throw crap at me, right?
No. I don't get it.
I hope this Taylor be dead. She'd pass out if I had a
No,
phone.
it's the
God,
shared
you-
message that they like to text in during class that goes off.
Well, that is important.
No, it's not
It
important.
is. That is.
No, I'm just
I
trying to.
mean,
get
there's
it
like
away.
there's like ISIS, there's a presidential election, and then there's cheerleading over here.
No, it's not.
Speaking of, have y'all heard any more on that deal I told you about that's not being reported about Biden and the computer and the emails and that kind of stuff? The guy who I don't understand all this. This guy was like the CEO of this corporation that the Biden family has that does stuff. I know that's pretty generic right there. This guy is a Democrat. He's a Biden supporter. He came out last week after Adam Schiff said it was a Russian scam. He came out and said, "Look, he's a military guy. He's a patriot. He says, I'm not going to have my name smeared. So that's not what happened at all. Said this is legit. This is corrupt." And he was interviewed yesterday by somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I guess it's a legit deal. But they're not going to tell anybody about it. It might come out after the election. Anyway, executive privilege. This is kind of like the same thing. Executive privilege. Anything with executive in it, what do we know it's talking about? President. Executive privilege. There are times when Congress has questions about something that's going on. So, say like the Senate Judiciary Committee had questions about Justice Barrett. Well, they probably interviewed people that knew her. They probably got college transcripts. They probably got documents of things she had written. Sometimes Congress wants to ask the president questions. They might be investigating something. And they might ask the White House, hey, could you send us the documents on this? Or we want to interview this person about this thing. And the White House, when I say the White House, There's another word they use with the White House: administration. Y'all heard that word before? The Trump administration. The administration. It's one of those things, I don't know what it is, it's hard to say. The Trump administration, bless you, is everything. It's all the stuff, if you're the president, it's all the stuff you're trying to do. It's all the stuff you're accomplishing. It's all the stuff you're involved with. That's your administration, right? The Cook administration, all right, is Coach Cook's offense, the way we do things, the way we run the team, the way things are done, that's the Cook administration. Oh, no.
I was simple.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, at Community Bank, the Cook administration, how things are done, how things are run, okay? That's, the Congress might ask a question, say, hey, we got a question on this, send us some documents. We want to interview these people. And the White House says, no, we're claiming executive privilege. You can't look at those documents. You can't interview these people because of national security. Could that be legitimate? Could there be some stuff that could compromise some things that are going on in the world? Could that be just a cover-up because we don't want you to find out what we're doing? Yes. Yes. So this is a real thing. It's also a scam at the same time. You see how that's possible? And if you love Donald Trump and he claims executive privilege, then thank you, he's doing the right thing here. If you hate Donald Trump and he claims executive privilege, the guy's a crook and a criminal, you know what I'm saying? And it's been used both ways. There was a lot of the thing that's popping in my head, the recent thing. Remember, y'all were little. Remember Benghazi, in Libya, where terrorists attacked our the embassy? It was like an embassy, it's a consulate, and killed some people. And the question was, what did we do? How did we do it? Should we have done it this way? And they claimed executive privilege. Which, is that possible? When you're talking about this kind of stuff in military action, it's possible. That's national security stuff. Does that kind of make sense? All right.
Did you watch that movie, 13 Hours?
I didn't.
Pretty good.
I don't watch a lot of movies. Right. Do you watch a lot of movies? You watch more than me. That's way more than me. Colt watches enough for America. I don't know, his whole life is shoes. I don't know who this kid is and what's happened to him. But shoes and movies. But no, I don't watch movies. I wanted to see that 1917. I still haven't seen that.
It's pretty good.
I want to see that.
My buddy told me it was horrible.
Well, it
Said it was
depends.
slow. All they did was walking around.
Well, that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
not like it's one camera angle the whole
Yeah,
time.
that's the thing that they couldn't believe they did it. Because if you ever messed up, you have to go back on how many. You couldn't really. That wasn't even little takes. All right. When it comes to foreign policy, when I say foreign policy, what are we talking about? Dealing with foreign countries, and there's two things we deal with: trade, economy, and military security stuff. So the president, what role does the president have in foreign policy? Okay, the president is commander-in-chief. As commander-in-chief, what does the president do? What does that mean for the president?
Manage the army. Control the military.
President is responsible for military decisions. Does the president make every military decision? No. The president is responsible.
So I've always wondered, in movies you see like the red phone. Does that go straight to the president, or does it go to the Secretary of Defense or whatever?
All right, I'm sure there's several red phones, and they might not even be red. There is a. Okay, here we go. I skipped every day of military school, right? However, there's the Pentagon. Okay? It's not bad. What is the Pentagon? When they talk about the Pentagon,
It's Homeland Security, right?
that's our military headquarters. That's where everything. That's where the Defense Department is. Okay, so this is the Defense Department. I'm sure there somewhere is a red phone. Probably several red phones, like you're talking about, and there's direct lines to the bigwigs. All right. There's also that's not horrible, is it?
I like it.
What is it?
White House.
Yeah.
You gotta add the little flag on top of it.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that.
That's the important part.
No, I think the guy with the gun up top is probably pretty important.
Pretty good.
And they paid money for this, might as well use it. There's somewhere in here, okay, actually off to the side, we'll get to this later. There's something called the West Wing. It's actually over here. It's bigger than that. Inside there is called the Situation Room. This is where they watched, when that Benghazi thing happened, they watched it. They've got meeting rooms there. They've got the control rooms, the TVs, the computers. If something's going down in the world or in the country, I know Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and the President, Vice President, and some other people were in that room watching that Benghazi deal. There's a phone there. And I'm sure there's a phone in the Oval Office. There's multiple ways to communicate. But there's a way the president can there's also something called, I've heard of this, the nuclear football. Y'all heard of that? As long as there's some guy there's some guy with the president all the time that has this briefcase. I don't know if this is true, it makes sense. That's the nuclear stuff. That if we need to do something nuclear, the president, and I'm pretty sure, it's not just the president, there'd have to be multiple, you've seen movies where you have to have 2 keys to make it work. There's something like that going on. But there are ways now where they can, after September 11th, they realized there was a lot of communication gaps, and they fixed a lot of that. But they can get a hold of whoever they need to get a hold of when they need to get a hold of. At least you just got to draw pictures and see some cool stuff. Responsible for military decisions. The president is also in charge of what? Talked about it yesterday. Foreign policy.
Chief of the
Security.
Foreign policy. Dealing with foreign countries. Diplomacy. Who's in charge of diplomacy? What group? What department? State Department. President is chief of state, which means the president is over the State Department. What happened?
That's when I need some jeans, I'll go buy them some. I mean, it's just 30 degrees when you're raining out.
But it's not, but it's warm in here. That's always my thought. Like when that gets hot, I don't like having long pants on.
I like you Saturday. I feel weird. Shorts.
Notice what I got here?
Wrangler.
Still man. And those other ones I wear are made by Wrangler. It doesn't say Wrangler. I need to make a patch one and say, yes, these are Wrangler.
If you didn't know.
In case you don't know. God, we got to talk to that architect. Been some shifting there in the foundation. State Department negotiates with foreign countries. Diplomacy. That's what diplomacy is. The treaties. The agreements. I'm gonna throw something out here. The Defense Department. which the Secretary of Defense answers to the Commander-in-Chief, answers to the President. Jump over to number 15. And we'll come back to 14. Look up on your phone how many times America has declared war.
Reagan, you'll be good at this.
How many times has America declared war?
Oh no, you can't talk. Come on, Lincoln.
17.
You can't talk.
He's pulling up. 11.
11?
11 occasions. Congress has declared war.
Good. 11 times.
That's on
Most of it was like in the 1800s. Really, in the 1900s, we've had World War I, World War II. Korea, we never declared war. That was police action. Vietnam, we never declared war. That was police action.
So do they have like a big red button just sitting there with like a little ball?
For like the
Emergency use
nuclear
only.
stuff?
Huh?
The nuclear stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's one that shoots all of them off.
Like what happens if you like trip and fall? You like
Yeah, well, they do have stuff where multiple things have to happen to do that.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a way where they, like, here's the thing, the Defense Department has plans in place to win a conflict anywhere in the world. They have a plan in place for us to attack England. They have to. In football, several years ago, when we blitzed everybody, it was this. What that is? Kitchen sink. Everything and the kitchen sink. We're bringing everything and the kitchen sink. Look up how many times we have sent troops somewhere.
That one's about 27.
It
Multiply by-
doesn't say, it just says, that the president can send troops 24 hours after Congress has, no, not 24 hours, 48 hours after Congress has declared war for 60 days.
That's true, but the president can send troops out. And we've done it multiple times. It's hundreds of times.
Yeah.
What it is. Okay, I just didn't know if it would pop up. You can see. I wanted to see.
No.
Hundreds of times.
He came up with 13,000 results.
There you go.
Yeah, it
Okay.
came up.
Now, when I say send troops out, we might have sent,
2.
something over here that, it's not. We always send troops out to shoot people. We sent an aircraft carrier to Indonesia when y'all were babies, when the tsunami happened in Indonesia and wiped out thousands of people. And people were mouthing, so it was President Bush that did it, and all these Democrats were like, why only President Bush would send an aircraft carrier for, well, y'all know what aircraft carriers can do. They can make water. They can desalinize, desalt water to create drinking water. They have hospitals. They have food preparation. The troops can help clean up and fix. That's why he sent an aircraft carrier over there, because there was a lot of stuff that they could do to help those people. Now the War Powers Act.
I better get off this website for the hack phone.
Yeah, they're not. The guys
Is United States Senate.
Oh yeah, the guys with the suits and the sunglasses and whole swarm, yeah.
I made it to
He's in the system.
1960, but there's 9 lines so far.
Well, yeah, we did a lot more in the.
That's what I'm saying.
1900s, yeah.
There's still like 45 more pages.
Yeah. We really didn't have a military until the 1900s. We kind of did, but in the 1900s we start. Plus, more technology, you can get more places quicker. War Powers Act of 1973. What's going on in 1973? Vietnam. Congress. Here's what happened in Vietnam. Vietnam started as a civil war. The French controlled the colony of Vietnam. And the Vietnamese people did not want to be a part of France anymore. So they had a civil war, kicked France out. We kind of sent some advisors, military advisors in to advise them. And then we just kind of kept sending people and started sending more. And pretty soon we kind of found ourselves involved in this war with the communists in South Asia. Who were the communists in South Asia funded by and sponsored by and helped by?
China.
China and the Soviet Union. And then you had American troops actually there. And it just built up and built up. It wasn't a war, we just kept sending troops. And Congress kept saying okay. And the president kept sending more troops. And then it turned into this whole big thing. Started out, you know. Anyway, the War Powers Act was passed towards the end of Vietnam to kind of stop this from happening. Although Congress could have stopped it at any time. President can send troops out. And I don't know if it's 60 or 90 days. I'm just going to say 60.
60.
Is it 60? President can send troops somewhere for 60 days. President's allowed to do that. If there's a tsunami, we can send an aircraft carrier to help the people out. If there's, usually we send troops in not for war stuff, but to help. We can send troops to Syria. We can send troops to Afghanistan. We can send troops to Iraq. After that 60 days, Congress, and this is not how it's written, it's how Ryle says it, Congress can say yes or no to funding it. They can say, we're not paying for that anymore. Bring them back.
So Congress can pull them out like, whenever they want.
They can stop funding it. There is a military budget, and they can do stuff. I'm not going to sit here and look in the face and say Congress can pull them out. Because the president's commander in chief, but they can say we're not going to pay this much for it. You can do what you want, but we're not paying for this. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. But it does limit the power of the president. Like this was supposed to keep another Vietnam from happening. I told you when I was a little kid, I was scared to death of thunderstorms because of Vietnam. Because on TV you'd see the war and you'd hear the sounds, and I thought that meant the war was coming when you had a thunderstorm coming. So you had no reason to be scared of thunderstorms because you didn't have Vietnam. I had a legitimate reason to be scared of thunderstorms. I'm not anymore. I like them now.
What about Desert Storm?
We watched that. No, okay. You talking about the one when you were a baby or the one when I was in college?
The one in like 2000.
Yeah. I mean, you were scared of that? Did they show that?
No, I was just.
See, I just, you tell you.
Yeah.
And when I was in college, we had when we went into Kuwait, CNN actually had people in Baghdad, and they filmed the bombs hitting, and they were under a desk, and we stayed up all night and watched that. It was the first war that was actually televised, and couldn't believe it. They were watching a war.
Sitting there, still just
Yeah,
watching
the
the roll.
reporters sitting there, and there's people just.
You could hear it. Yeah. Okay, diplomatic recognition. Diplomatic recognition. What's diplomatic mean? Foreign countries. Okay, diplomatic, dealing with foreign countries. What's recognition? You recognize them. About once a month, I'll be somewhere and somebody going, "Hey, Coach Ryle." I'm like, "Well, hey, guy. Hey, how's it going?" I didn't recognize it. Diplomatic recognition, this is going to sound stupid, is when we officially recognize a country's existence, a government of a country. And if we recognize them, it means we deal with them. Doesn't mean we like them or hate them, it just means we deal with them. We recognize they exist, we negotiate with them, we have an embassy there. You know what an embassy is? It's not a hotel with a swan. An embassy. It's where our government people in a foreign country that's their headquarters. That's where they meet. The ambassadors, the State Department people.
It's actually like your own soul.
It's your country. In the French embassy in Washington, D.C., that is France. When Americans' embassies get attacked, what's happening? They're attacking us, our soul.
So if you said like in Benghazi, like they said there's never been a war fought on, or besides civil war fought on U.S. soil, Is that counted as a foreign world?
I mean, not really. It does, but not really. I mean, we could treat it like that, but we're not gonna say, you know, that's different than bombing New York City.
Yeah.
It is Americans. If you go there and have a baby, that's American citizen. That's U.S. soil. Now, part of recognizing, we didn't recognize China for about 30 years after they became communist China. We did not, they didn't exist. We didn't deal with the communist government of China. That was not the legitimate government of China. When we said China, we were talking about Taiwan, because that's where the government of China left and went to Taiwan. Now I'm confused because Cuba, we did not recognize Castro. We did not recognize Cuba. We didn't deal with Cuba from '59. And I remember about 5 years ago, we started talking about recognizing them and talking to them. I don't know if we ever did. But diplomatic recognition means we officially recognize that country. They're legitimate. We deal with them. We don't have an embassy in North Korea. We don't have an embassy in Iran. We don't have an embassy, I don't believe, in Cuba. So diplomatic recognition means we have an embassy, we deal with you, you are a country, we may not be best friends with you, but just a couple more here. We'll do two more, we'll do that. We have time, anyway. How does the president affect laws? What's legislation mean? Laws. How does the president affect that?
You can
No, he can create them or like make them.
veto.
Okay, that's the basic. Sign and veto, right? President can sign a law, president can veto a law. Can the president write a law?
Martial law.
Can the president write a law?
Executive order.
Okay, yes, it's like a law. But an actual law, can the president, who does the laws? Congress. So Congress writes the laws. Does the president ever have anything to do with that?
Yeah.
The president will tell, like, okay, the health care law that was passed, you know, that President Obama is a Democrat. He got with the Democrats in Congress and said, we got to do this law. And they worked together on it. The president was right in there in the middle of that, helping with that, okay? Presidents do that a lot. They get in with their party people in Congress, and the president will suggest and oftentimes help. They might even give, here's what I want in there. So they can help, they can suggest, Congress writes it. But the president helps with it. Does that make sense? When y'all were in 8th grade, Coach Tyner would call the plays. Okay? Right? He called the plays. I think there was times where, as y'all were the president, and he was Congress, and he passed a law, but then I think there was times where y'all said, you know, we're not doing this law. We're going to do this law. Right? Okay. So, that's kind of like that, maybe. If that makes any sense at all. So the president does have a lot to do with legislation, but not officially. Okay?
It's not China pass, it's China pass.
Time pass. What'd y'all change it to?
We just use it to trap.
Trap. That's a great
We did
play.
that word.
Trap is the RAM of that time period. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, run it 6 times in a row. The last time.
Hey, any of you guys that go to the game, I'll tell you a secret. And you can be smarter than everybody else. If you see the circle, if the circle is over here, the thing I hold up, if you see the circle on this side, then the helmet is the play. But y'all see the back of the helmet. So if you ever see that, so that circle means look at the helmet. So there you go. But y'all see the back side of the helmet. So RAM is a play. It's a RAM. Last one. Picking a judge or a justice. The president picks federal judges. I I heard one of the dumbest things I've ever heard from the stands Friday night. I don't hear much. This one broke through, and I laughed out loud. And me and the ref both laughed out loud when it was 2nd and 4. We gained 6 yards, but there's a penalty on the defense, so we took the penalty. So instead of 2nd and 4, it's 1st and 5. And this idiot in the stands yells out, "That's a horrible spot! That's horrible!" And I looked at the ref, what? And I looked at the ref, I said, "Oh my gosh." And he just looked at me and laughed and said, "Oh wow, that's an all-timer right there." Yeah, it's first, number 1, 1st and 5. Oh. Oh. All right.
I remember there was one part of this. We thought we had like the penalty, like pretty good. We were like,
Yes.
we were telling Coach Cook to calm down.
Yeah,
And then turn around and start walking.
Like,
Wow. That was the offsides.
yeah,
When the whole team sat there,
yeah.
and their guy went, and Nikki goes and snaps the ball.
And apparently I jumped
No,
outside.
it was Nikki. They said Nikki.
It said Nikki.
Oh.
Nikki jumped off sides.
Yeah.
So we've been off sides every play this year then. Oh my gosh, we've snapped the ball on every offensive play.
Nick comes on our huddle and he's like, I'm gonna need y'all to quit talking, quit saying this stuff. We're like, the play clock's right, get out.
Alright. See y'all later. Have fun.
Sometimes you just gotta fight it, man.
You get that?
I finished by the time. I only have like 2 left, but I don't know.
If you want to finish it tomorrow, you can.
I would not be a good football coach.